All right, hello everyone. So I'm traveling for the week and I kind of was in the SF area and I knew that a current member of the E team, Jeffrey Moss, is here and he lives in the area. So I hit him up and just kind of wanted to have a little bit of a conversation and meet him in person so that we can kind of discuss some of the latest stuff in the e-ink world and a little bit about our kind of YouTube channels as well.
Yeah.
So this is Jeff. And would you like to give a quick introduction of yourself?
Yeah, so I have a YouTube channel. It's under my name, Jeffrey Moss, and basically it focuses on e-ink devices, particularly note-taking devices, not so much the readers.
Yeah.
I've been doing it for a little over a year and a half, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
Nice. So I guess kind of one of the first things I want to talk about is just the reason for you starting with the actual e-ink note takers, and then also like I know you work in the kind of healthcare field, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
And so how you use the devices in the healthcare field, and then B, which is your kind of favorite device to use at work?
Yeah, so I started using my devices at work probably about 3.5 years ago, and you know I've always been like super excited about what it can do. For all my career, there's been discussion about a paperless office, right? Where, you know, you don't have any papers. But most of my career, it's been having a monitor with stickies around the edges, printer paper all over the place, actual notebooks. And so, you know, 3.5 years ago, when I started actually getting into e-ink note-taking, like that really went away for the first time in my career. And I've been working for, you know, over 30 years.
Yeah.
So,
and that was the Big Me, correct? You had a Big Me device?
No, actually, I started with the Note Air, the original Note Air. Yeah. And then so
that's actually the only books device I've tried. Was the
original Note Air?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Well, and it's still around. I gave it to one of my coworkers, and she's using it to this day. Although there's a big crack in it because she left it in the heat too long. But if it weren't for that, it would still be running. So they're very they can last a long time. But you know, I was so excited about it and so into it. And then new devices started to come out, and I started to get into that. And that's kind of somehow led into the channel. I don't exactly remember exactly why I did it, to be honest with you. I mean, it's too far back.
Like why you uploaded your first video?
Yeah, what caused me to do it. I do, now that I'm saying that out loud though, I did have, I still have a Pixel phone. And one of the elements of that is you take video and it can automatically upload onto YouTube. And so I think that might have been part of the impetus, but my memory is kind of vague on that.
Okay.
Anyway, so I got really into it, and it was a lot of fun just to look at these new devices coming out. And there were other YouTubers I was watching about these devices as well. And so it just kind of led me to do my own channel. And I felt like, I do remember that one of the advantages of doing YouTube is you have a voice that you can't get in other forums. Like I love Reddit, I'm on Reddit all the time. But you do a post on Reddit and then, you know, one day later it's down below and it's quickly forgotten.
And there's a little bit of searchability because like sometimes when I want to know a very niche thing, I just go to Google and I type this, Reddit, right? And I'll find a post. But like if people are on their Reddit feed, the algorithm isn't the same. It's more based on time recency, right?
Yeah,
versus
absolutely.
YouTube, where it's like your interests.
Right, or time recency, or the discussion that's going on. And what I tend to find in a lot of Reddit posts, I do like Reddit, but that discussion is sometimes not directly related to. We have another guest.
We have a cat over here. You can see. She's very into e-ink.
Come on, Sully. So it's not always related to what the original post was. A lot of people go off on tangents, which, you know, it's fine, right? People are having a conversation about it. But again, that diminishes the original post. And so it just, with YouTube, you know, you've got your video, you've got the conversation, but the video still stands on its own.
Yeah. And then like sometimes posts get like archived too, so you can't even, if you wanted to comment on it, you can't, because it's like completely archived, you know?
Yeah.
But that's a good point. But it is definitely an invaluable tool for finding very niche topics, right?
For sure. Oh, and great. And if you had Reddit, you mean, right? And yeah, in addition to that, if I wanted to get, you know, if I had a question about something, that's the place to go, no matter what it is.
Yeah.
Now, I think your other question, if I remember correctly, was around like the usage at work. So I mentioned I started with the Note Air, and then I've moved on to the Super Note about 2.5.
Biting your cable.
Oh, come on now. Okay, one second. This is
Brief intermission. So really quickly about Reddit.
Yeah.
I read a funny post on Reddit, and someone was saying, sometimes on these smaller subreddits, you'll post a question, and then like you won't get many replies.
Mm-hmm.
But he was like, post something about the topic you want, and then say something completely incorrect, because someone will for sure come and correct you, and then they'll give you the
And
answer
then that
you
draws
want.
in. Cool. That's a great tip. I've had good runs though. If I've needed something, actually, a lot of times when I go into Reddit, if it's not related to this, you just do an internet search and those posts will be there.
That's what I'm saying. If
yeah,
you Google
yeah.
this niche topic Reddit, and then it just pops up, and normally the answer you want's right there, right?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, anyway, so going back, so I started with the Note Air for a year, and then I actually saw a video on My Deep Guide, so on Voya's channel, and that was about regarding the Super Note, and the Super Note had been out for a while, but had been updated and had really improved it, because originally I guess it came out and it had all sorts of issues with lag.
That was when the A5, not even A5X, right?
Actually, this is the X, the A5X.
X,
yeah. So that got me
very early software.
That's right. Yeah. So that had improved, and then that got my attention. I ended up getting a Super Note, and I haven't looked back.
Yeah.
Now the use case for it for me is simply I just get rid of all that paper. So I talked earlier about stickies, about pads, and all that. It's all gone. If you go to my office, there's nothing. And except for my tchotchkes, right?
Yeah.
But
I'm the same way. It's like the only time I really use paper is if I'm gonna give a note to someone of some sort,
right.
or
you're signing or something.
Yeah, I'm signing something, or I'm in a weird scenario where I don't have one of my e-ink tablets right next to me, but I normally do. So
yeah, for sure. So all I'm doing really is I'm taking notes. I'm tracking to-dos. That's why I like the star marking system in particular, and that has not been matched. We'll talk about books later, but books has not matched that. As well as file management. That's another big thing that SuperNote actually does well that people don't talk about. It's the best file management system.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also I'm able to run the SuperNote without using the web services.
Okay.
That's critical. I have to have complete confidentiality of my
That
notes.
works, yeah.
I can't have any risk of it leaking at all, even though most of what I'm writing isn't confidential. But just the prospect of it isn't
Just
can't allow it.
You wouldn't want to mess around with it.
No.
So it's
No. And you don't have to sign in to their account, so I don't.
Yeah.
And it's completely offline, and it works great.
So use the SuperNote a lot. Do you think when the A5X2 comes out, do you think you'll use that more than the Nomad? Or do you...
I don't really use the Nomad much at all. I reviewed it, but I need at least the 10 inches of screen size. Yeah, and the Nomad's great. I gave it a good review. I'm pretty sure I recommended it. It wasn't even a year ago, but in my memory, it seems like a lifetime.
Yeah.
I definitely recommend it. I remember this now. But I've never actually used it all that much because it's really a note taker more than anything, and the screen size is a bit too small for me.
Sure.
Yeah.
That is the VWoods AI Mini. I think it's 0.4 bigger. Did you find that to be a more reasonable size at all?
For the note taking in particular?
Yeah, or did you think it was similar enough where it was just too small?
It was similar, but in the case of that device, I can just use it as an e-reader.
Yeah.
And actually taking it out of its case, it's a really cool e-reader.
It's so slim.
Yeah, I know. It's really cool. Now, the lighting is it's not the best front lighting.
Yeah, it's kind of a little, it's almost a little too blue in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's also a little splotchy toward the bottom.
Yeah.
But outside of that...
it does get really bright though. I was on the plane last week, flying here, and I had the Mini, and then I was like, just to compare. I was doing stuff on the Remarkable, but I was like, just to compare, let me see the bright, the front light, and it was just worlds brighter than the Remarkable.
Yeah, I'm getting the sense that might be the case that e-ink, because I think they're the ones that install the front lighting as well as the panel, because the Books Note Air 4C, that front lighting is way... this is actually the Big Me.
Oh, that's the Big Me.
Yeah, but the 4C, the front lighting is way brighter than it was on the 3C. So I think that's one of the innovations that that E-Ink is releasing.
So which one's this?
This is
called
the Bigme B1051C,
Okay.
which just rolls right off the tongue.
Yeah, right. And they have it looks like there's like a speaker grill here.
It does look like a speaker grill, but actually the
It's not a bad looking device, you know.
no, the speakers are on top.
Gotcha.
But Bigme does a fine job with hardware. Is it, the best hardware? No, but it's among the best. It's the software where they ultimately let you down a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess one of the first things to talk about is, Kindle is probably the most recent announcement. Or no, sorry, the Kindle was before the book's announcement, right?
It was.
Yeah. But anyways, the Kindle, it's kind of a big change for them because it's the first color device they've had.
Yeah.
Even though Color and Kaleido, Plus and 3 has been out in the market for a long time. What are your kind of thoughts about, I guess, A, the intro of the ColorSoft and how late it is to the game, but then B, the Scribe and what you think they'll do with that in the future? Because this was, for those that don't know, this is a very minimal refresh, right?
Yeah.
It was basically just on the outside. And we'll talk a little bit about the 2 software features they added.
Well, okay, so in terms of the color, I mean, as you said, it's already come out. But, for Amazon, they don't need to be a first mover in anything. They've got the brand recognition. I would argue that they have the best brand recognition in E-Ink.
Yeah.
Certainly in America, probably in Western countries.
Yeah, I mean, they've been making them for 17 years now. I think the first one was 2007.
Yeah, I mean, well, to put this into perspective, I started with E-Ink before there was a Kindle. I had a Sony PRS something, 505 or something like that.
Yeah.
And which was an amazing device. And I couldn't believe people weren't into this. Kindle releases shortly thereafter, and no one cares about Sony.
It put the name on the map.
It
Put E-Ink on the map pretty much.
Exactly. Right? Yeah. And so Sony was forgotten about. And in fact, like 5 years down the line, had to close their store because they just couldn't compete with them.
And then way later they came out with the DPT, which was
Right.
arguably, I think that was actually before the Remarkable, right?
I think it might have been.
I think it was. I think because I remember seeing that thing and I was like so entranced. I was like, whoa, that's so cool. It's like a massive. It was super big, right?
Yeah.
But it was like over $1,000 back in the day,
right.
And I was like, I'm not gonna spend that much money on a E-Ink tablet. But then when the Remarkable 1 came out, I was like, okay, this is the one I'm gonna buy.
Yeah, Remarkable clearly in the writing space is kind of the pioneer, but still from a brand perspective, Amazon is just way beyond them.
Yeah, I think Amazon did to the e-reader what Remarkable did to the e-note taker.
Yeah. But anyway, so it doesn't hurt Amazon not to have waited as long as they did. Although they're having some issues and they're getting recalls, so I'm not sure. But they'll be fine in the long run. That'll be forgotten.
Yeah.
Like the Xbox 360 is forgotten.
Yeah. What he's mentioning is the ColorSoft. I'd ordered one and I returned it because there's some yellowing issue and they're not sure if it's hardware or software, but they are, I think, allowing returns, and they're actively working on it. So I'll test it again in the future to see what comes of it.
One interesting thing to note, I don't have the ColorSoft, so you have a better reference point than I have. But what I've seen on it is that it's just a standard Kaleido 3 screen. There's nothing particularly notable, unlike the Remarkable Pro, where it appears that Remarkable as a company had a hand with E-Ink and manipulating the technology. That wasn't the case with Amazon, which I found a little surprising, actually. Yeah,
and I will say I did compare it next to, I have 2 color e-readers. I have the Pocketbook InkPad Color 3, and then the Pocketbook VersaColor, which is like a 6-inch small one. And the InkPad Color 3 looks better than the 6-inch one, just in general, comparing side to side.
Yeah.
The InkPad Color 3 still looks better than the ColorSoft. But the ColorSoft looks a little better than the Versa, I think.
Okay.
So it's somewhere in between there. In size and in terms of the color rendering, I think.
But would it be fair to say these are kind of subtle gradients between them?
Yeah, I mean, it's nothing crazy, but there was definitely more vibrancy in the InkPad Color 3, which I thought was interesting because InkPad Color 3 has been out since, I think I got it in January.
Yeah.
And they're Amazon and the Note Air 4C are claiming this new backlight or front light tech is very different, but it seems like the InkPad Color 3, it's the best Kaleido 3 screen I've seen by far.
Oh, interesting.
I want to check out your Note Air 4C.
Yeah.
But from the ones I've seen, it's really good.
Okay.
Candidly, I like it more than the colors on the Remarkable Paper Pro.
Oh, fascinating.
Yeah.
I do know this.
But the yellows are not nearly as good.
Okay.
But I think that's just gallery versus Kaleido.
Yeah. I remember doing a video, and there was a comic book, and that I was displaying on a Kaleido 3 screen, and I had I remember this. I had two devices side by side, and the titles were different colors.
Okay.
And so one person said, "Hey, which one's the right one?" And so I ended up getting the Source, and it was completely different than either of the two.
Oh, really?
So that because Kaleido is so limited with 4,000 colors, software is doing a lot of the heavy lifting. And I wonder if with that particular device, they just got the software a bit better.
Yeah, I think in my review of it, I don't know, they just tuned it really well out the box. Because like there's a few, like you can control gamma, contrast, brightness and stuff. And I was playing around with it, and like everything I did made it look worse than it already looked.
Yeah.
Like, so it was just tuned nicely out of the box, you know? Which for an e-reader, I think is a good experience, right? Like this, you're viewing so much different type of content that like sometimes tweaking it's nice, or the Node Air 4C, but like an e-reader, normally when you pull it out, you just want to read, right? You don't want to be messing around with settings and stuff. Like, you know, you're at the beach or something and you're like, you just want to enjoy it, right? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
and then I guess the other two things about Kindle would be the software features. For those that don't know, they've kind of implemented I think they're calling it Active Canvas, which is one of my biggest complaints about the original Scribe, was just that when you I think it's good and bad, but it's nice to have both. Like the old way was like a little sticky note where you then just pull up notes on it.
Right.
And then the new way is like you can mark down stuff on the page, which for some people is more reasonable. But then one of my viewers like told me, it was like, actually having the sticky notes is also nice, because if you go back into the book, you can kind of get a brief recap of all your notes. Whereas having stuff just on the page is awesome, because you can see like where it is in respect to things. But if you're reviewing it later, the sticky notes might be more useful.
Oh,
does that make sense to you?
It does.
Because then you have like Supernote does like the digest of everything you highlighted or wrote, you know. But either way, good to see Active Canvas, I think.
It is, yeah. So Kobo's always had the ability to write onto the book, although they were limited to the margins, which does have limited utility. So I am curious about the concept. I've not seen it in action.
I've never tried the Kobo eNote takers, but could you like minimize your text so your margins were bigger?
You could change the margins. I don't remember if it was a pinch to zoom function.
But once you set the margin, was it like fixed then? Or could you like...
the writing, you mean?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. That's a good question.
They would probably have to like rescale stuff with the text or something. But anyways, I think they were one of the few ones that had the option to do that. Right?
Yeah. So yeah, I'm curious about how that works. And I don't have any interest in getting the Scribe 2, but I understand the software will be retro next year, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays in action. I will say this though, and I do this a lot in my reviews where I talk about annotations, but I don't annotate anything. Like it's been since I was in college, I've annotated textbooks, right?
I honestly don't annotate as much either. That's why I'm still like trying to find ways to like integrate the Remarkable Paper Pro, because I actually don't use color a lot either. So I'm trying to like figure that out and play around with how useful note taking can be in color for me.
Yeah, which is I think it is the best note taking color.
Definitely.
I like Kaleido 3 a lot, but you have to run the front lighting to really get the color to pop. Yeah,
and that ends up
draining the
battery more.
Right,
right. Yeah. No, I found the battery life to be pretty good on this. And then just to finish off the Kindle, so the last thing would be the AI ability. And for those of you that have an old Kindle Scribe, it will come out for the old one, like the software features. So the AI and the Active Canvas. AI, I don't think they gave a lot of reference of how it's going to be useful or integrated. But
sure, and the phrase AI is so...
It's just a catchphrase.
It is, and books more than anybody. I like books, but they've made kind of a joke of the phrase AI. I guess they're not the first one. I shouldn't just point at them. But yeah, so I'm not sure what that means.
Yeah.
It's not a chatbot or anything like that, or a large language model. So
I think it's going to be more like, features like maybe the OCR will get better. Maybe you can like lasso stuff and it'll recognize it in some way or something like that. Knowing Amazon, it's going to be probably pretty quick because it's using AWS, I would assume, the cloud servers. And then, we'll certainly see what that's going to...
I am intrigued at it. I will say, generally speaking, when I review these devices, I reviewed my Kindle and I put it in a drawer. Which is a lot of good devices are in the drawer. That's not a commentary on the Kindle, but it's clearly a device, and the Kobo is the same way, that it's meant for reading. And everything else is kind of ancillary to that and trying to support that. And so I like reading, but again, I don't annotate. So
So sometimes you'd probably prefer something smaller.
I do prefer something small. Yeah, I like to have like a 7 or 8 inch for that. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm kind of the same way. Like I was using my Scribe a bunch, and I really liked the landscape where you could have a page and a page. But not all books supported that. And then once I got the InkPad Color 3 to 7.8, I was like, oh, this just is so nice. Like because it's not small like the screen, 7.8, but it's just such a good reading size, you know. And you can fit it in one hand. It's got the buttons. It's like I kind of wish the Scribe had like buttons on it.
Yeah, yeah.
One of my friends, he had the Kindle Oasis. I saw him yesterday, and he's like, he doesn't know what to buy now because the new Paperwhites and the ColorSoft, none of them have buttons. And he was like, that's my favorite feature when I'm at the beach, is just like having it in one hand and just click, 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 like go through pages, you know.
I had the Kindle, it was a Voyage, I can't remember, but it had haptic buttons.
Oh
Which
yeah,
were great. So it felt, you could feel a vibration.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see where Amazon goes. I was watching, do you know Michael Fisher, Mr. Mobile? He's a YouTuber. But so he just reviewed the ColorSoft. Came out today, I watched it earlier. And he said something interesting because he went to the launch event of the Kindle. The fellow who was presenting, I think his name is, I'm going to butcher it, I don't have my phone so I can't look it up, but it's like Panos something. But he used to work at Microsoft for like 17 years.
Oh, yeah.
And I think they poached him. And so Mr. Mobile was like insinuating that maybe some of those Duo devices that fold could be something that Amazon's looking at for the Kindle devices. Which that would be really interesting if they did something like that. But
Okay. I have to think about that.
This is all speculation from him.
Panos, I think, right?
Yes.
Isn't that the name? Yeah.
It's Panos. The first name or last name is P also. It's like...
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
But anyways, he was at Microsoft for a long time. And so
yeah.
this guy was just speculating that maybe they're going to come out with a folding device in like a couple of years. Now that they've shifted into color already, it's like, what's the next move, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, certainly a color Kindle, I think, Kindle Scribe would be a move in the future.
Yeah, although I don't think they would do that with Kaleido 3.
They might wait, yeah.
Yeah, they might wait for Gallery to become more advanced.
Yeah.
But who knows? I've been wrong before.
And so speaking of Gallery, that's a good transition into the Remarkable Paper Pro.
Yeah.
So I think one of the things that stuck out to me when we had our E-Team talk was that you were, I think this was not even in the E-Team conversation, it was the test run we had. You were talking about how the size of the Remarkable Paper Pro renders a lot of the A4 sizes useless.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
Having used it now for like a month and a half, 2 months, I completely agree.
Yeah.
Because it's just such a nice, like 11.8 is just a nice sweet spot where when you're reading documents that would normally be smaller on a 10-inch screen, it makes it that little bit bigger, but it's not cumbersome, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like my backpack I brought here, it fits perfectly into the sleeve. It's not a huge sleeve, but it fits perfectly. Whereas I know, like I have my laptop sleeve and there's a sleeve in front of it, so it's a smaller sleeve. I know an A4 size would not fit in there.
Yeah. And it balances the weight really nicely.
Yeah.
And so you can easily
It's not
imagine.
like, I don't know, when I saw it was like 500 grams, I was like, oh, this is going to be a tank, but it's really not bad.
Yeah,
it's distributed well, you know?
Exactly.
The grip feet are nice.
Yeah.
My Remarkable 2, actually one of them like popped out.
Oh.
So I like that they made them bigger and like wider now.
Yeah, and it fits nicely in the case too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so what are your like kind of overall thoughts on it? What do you use it for?
Well, the Remarkable Pro as well is actually, it's not in a drawer. I have it mounted on the whiteboard. Shout out to Roderick for Rants About Tech.
Yeah.
Check it out. I was impressed with the device. The problem I had with it, actually the biggest lament I had is I couldn't do comics on it. And honestly, you can't do anything unless it's a PDF, essentially, in terms of reading documents. And so you're left then with the note taking. And it's not as good as the Supernote, for me anyway.
Yeah.
It's not as good as books. Even Viwoods, I think, is actually better, personally.
Yeah.
So it's still good. I understand why people like Remarkables. I'm actually not. These things don't come down to which one's best. These things come down to which one matches your
best for you.
preferences. Right, exactly.
But also, it's like, we are in a subset where we try a lot of these devices.
Yes.
And so I think a lot of the appeal of the Remarkable is there's a very small learning curve.
Absolutely.
And a lot of the people that just pick it up and use it, like they just want to take notes. They don't want to have all these advanced features. And like there is a time and a place for that. And there's certainly people that love to nerd out over that stuff, and us included. But I think that's the use case for a lot of people for Remarkable.
So you reminds
a
me of
basic just note taker.
Yeah, you remind me of that story. So I had this guy. So everyone at work knows that I'm into the e-ink devices because that's
Yeah.
I don't make it a secret.
Yeah.
And so one guy one day showed me, hey, look, I got the Scribe. And my initial reaction was, oh, that's not the one I'd recommend.
With it. Like,
But I didn't say it, thank God. I had the wisdom not to say anything, number one. And number two, he was so happy with it.
Yeah.
And he should be. It did everything he wanted it to do.
And
it is still a good device.
And it's such a good value for your money.
Yeah,
too, right?
yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. So even though it's not in my ballpark, like it's a great. These are all great devices.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not the Big Me as much, but they're trying. But yeah, no, it just depends on your use case. And I mean, the hardware obviously is excellent. Like I said, I think it's the best color note-taking device out there if that's really something that's important. Although I'm with you, I tend to find colors not as critical for note-taking as I thought it would have been.
I've just been trying to figure out like how to, I've been like forcing myself to use color. Like, I'm like, okay, so right now I'm researching like some meta stuff, and I'm like, oh, let me just throw in some color so it's more interesting. But it's like against my will I'm doing it. I'm like forcing myself to do it.
Yeah, you're trying to adapt yourself to the device.
Like I love highlighting like in a document or a paper.
Right, where you can go like diagonal and it's not the whole thing.
But like for this, I'm reading some PDFs and stuff on it, so I'm trying to figure out how to note take with it to make use of the color, because I feel like I read PDFs more on other devices.
And I just haven't found a use case for myself, so it's just mounted there on the.
Yeah.
I love reviewing it. I really had a blast reviewing it. And it is expensive. That's really one of the downers. The only bit, so going back to my earlier comment about making the 13 inches redundant, I did think that. I still think that for the most part. But let me throw out this type of scenario. It's not true. But what if the Books Max came with the keyboard cover? So now you've got a 13-inch model at $650. That would be totally compelling.
Yeah, I'm wondering how much that device is going to cost.
With the keyboard cover?
The keyboard cover.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Probably like 80 to 100 more.
Yeah, I was going to say if they go over 100 for the keyboard, they're going to lose a lot of people. Because then you're getting to the 800 territory.
Right.
Which you can get a Remarkable.
But there's a little
Paper
piece
Pro.
of me that's wondering.
Yeah.
It's when is this the big surprise that Books was holding on to?
Yeah.
And now, boom, it's included. Like that would be a game changer.
Yeah. Anyways, so for the Remarkable Paper Pro, Jeff has done very in-depth parts. I think you did 3, maybe 4 parts.
4, I think, yeah.
So if you guys are more interested in this device, definitely check his stuff out. I have not put out a review of it yet. I just did a live stream last week about it, but he's gone in depth about all of it, so you can check that out. I'll link it here for you guys. Any other thoughts about the Remarkable Paper Pro before we move on?
No, I wish I'd want to use it more than I do. That's pretty much where I ended up with it.
I've been kind of forcing myself to use it because I'm working towards my long-term review, but it's I like it. Like I do like the new feel versus the old one.
Yes.
The tapping isn't the greatest, but I honestly haven't found. I know some people that put out reviews like were just like the tapping like drove me insane. I don't actually notice it that much. Doesn't really bother me. I do think the durability. So when I'm traveling, sometimes like there were times when I was traveling with my Remarkable where I was using it so much that the thing just went flat, and I like forgot to bring extra tips. This, I feel like I can go anywhere and it lasts like, I probably had this for a month and a half, 2 months, and it's not even that bad.
Is that the Pro?
This is the Marker Plus Pro.
Plus, let me hold.
Yeah. So,
okay,
I think texture-wise, it probably feels very similar.
It's similar, yeah. That was a real. So I got the basic pen on mine, but I had the textured pen on the Remarkable 2.
Yeah.
I hated it because my hands would constantly slip, and I felt like I had to grip
This
it.
has more grip.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
And one thing, it's subtle, but I like more, is the eraser. If you remember the Remarkable 2, it went straight. This one tapers in, almost like the mechanical pencils where when you pull off the back,
Yes.
the eraser's a lot thinner than the actual width of the pencil.
Yep.
So that's like a subtle thing where I've actually enjoyed it because you get a little more like fine erasing on the side versus just like the straight down,
Gotcha.
But yeah, in general, I think I've never had the battery die on me, which is good.
Yeah.
I was like a little worried about that, but I think
it's-
it's rated at over like 100 hours of writing or something.
Yeah, and mine every time I go, I haven't charged it in like a month, but it's on standby, so it's just holding that battery.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And they fixed the magnets. Like,
Yeah.
I normally do travel with this little flap up, but I don't feel like I have to anymore. My Remarkable 2 marker, I would just always searching for it. I'm sure right?
Yep.
Just not strong enough. I think the thing I've liked the most about it, besides the kind of color aspect, is the size. It's just,
Yeah.
It's
I
nice.
want to see more on that size.
it's nice, yeah.
Yep.
I want to see more, even like 11 and a half, like just something a little bigger than the A5 size, It's just a nice sweet spot, I think.
Yeah, I'm with you.
But yeah, so I guess my next question for you was kind of just related to your YouTube channel. You've, like I said, he does very in-depth reviews of these e-ink devices. Where do you kind of see it going, and maybe who are some of the people that you've been watching that you've really been like inspired by?
Yeah. Well, I'll take that in reverse order. So, inspired by, I think the godfather of all videos is Voya, my deep guide. I think in a lot of ways, he also kind of inspired me to kind of do my videos, and in some ways, I wanted to do them differently than he did. But that's a compliment. It's not a.
Yeah.
It's not. I just thought I could be a voice added in addition to his, but he was always the man.
Yeah.
So, and then Kit from Gorilla Physics, he has a friend named Dan Dutton. Dan does the eWritable website, which is a fantastic website, which I highly recommend.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, so Kit basically, I don't think he's updating this, but Kit was giving stats on the different aspects of devices, and then Dan put it in his website as a spider chart, and so you can pick the different attributes you want, the different.
I think I did see this in one of Kit's videos.
Yeah,
I didn't know
yeah.
that was what was going on.
And I find that my thoughts on devices that I've reviewed as well is like, we don't always agree, but we agree most of the time. So I really like watching him as well. So those are two people. And that's pretty much kind of it. There's a handful of other folks, obviously E-Team. I'm watching a lot of those videos. But you can only watch so much, right?
Yeah.
And there's other great people out there.
Yeah.
There's another guy I've watched a little bit of.
Even the people that you watch regularly, you can't watch every video.
Yeah, no, I don't, not at all. Right. I haven't watched
It's just too much content at the end of the day.
Right. And I don't watch videos of stuff I review beforehand, and then by the time I'm done, I can.
Go check it out.
I don't want to see it anymore, so I don't watch the videos then either.
Well, yeah, because maybe you don't want to get like influenced by
I don't want to be influenced by it. Yeah, right. And then I'm cool with cats. I'm cool with watching afterwards, but I'm just ready to move on at that point. Usually.
Who was the other guy you were just mentioning?
I'm trying to remember his name. He's actually kind of coming on. He might have been around, but he's getting a lot of traction. Gosh, I don't remember his name though.
What do you look like?
He has a background as always Star Trek.
Khalid. Kami.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
Yeah. So I think I've never like talked to him or collab, but we've exchanged comments on each other's videos and stuff or something like that. And I sometimes reference him because I feel like he's good at like finding issues sometimes with devices. So with the V-Woods, for example, he pointed out in his video that when he tilted it too much, because the tip is like metal and then the end of it, like he actually scratched his screen just from tilting the marker too much.
Oh, get out of here.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's on the soft tip.
Yeah.
The hard
and
ones
so
don't have the
he
show.
like showed a close-up in one of the videos that I referenced in my video just because I thought that was an interesting point where I was like, okay, maybe it's a little extreme, like you're pushing super hard from the side, but like that should not happen, right? Like you should not be able to scratch your screen with your marker that's made for the device.
Yeah, that's a great observation. And that would be relevant especially if you're sketching.
But I think he actually has been doing e-ink for a long time. He was just writing articles online about it.
Oh, okay.
I think that's don't quote me on that, but I think that's So he has a lot of background in e-ink. That's why he's got a ton of devices too.
Gotcha.
But yeah, no, he's his remarkable Paper Pro review is great and all that.
Yeah. But going to your other question, then going to the first one, the future of the channel, I don't know. I'm definitely committed to doing it at the end of this year. I'll probably do it next year too, but I'll probably want to I might go in a slightly different direction. I'm always going to focus on e-ink devices.
Yeah.
The issue for me is right now I do enjoy doing the videos. It's a learning process and it's fun. It's all great. The problem though is I do it at a loss. I do it at a significant loss.
Because you're buying a lot of devices.
I'm buying most of the devices. Yeah, I've had, and even the devices that have been given to me, I think there's been 3 that have been given to me by the manufacturers to review, and I just get to keep it.
Yeah.
I still have to pay taxes on that.
Right.
So I'm still paying a third of it, So it's an expensive hobby, and unfortunately for those of you into the nuances of American tax system, the way our thing works now is my expenses don't go up against the revenue. They don't care about your expenses.
Yeah.
So whatever revenue you have is taxed. So that makes it painful. I'll just put it that way. It probably makes sense. There's probably a good reason for it. But so it's like I'm probably going to spend a few $1,000s more than I'll take in on YouTube revenue next year. So how long do I want to do that? I don't know.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, take that for what it is, because obviously he's very passionate about it. If you're doing it at a loss. Right?
Yes, exactly. It's a labor of love.
Yeah. In my opinion, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you probably, if you didn't have an outlet to share these things, you probably wouldn't buy and try as many.
Oh, absolutely not.
Had,
no.
Right? So in that sense, it's good because it gives you the opportunity to find what the best thing for you is, and you implement it at work too.
Oh, I'm not complaining at all. Yeah, no, I knew what I was signing up for and going. There just comes to a point where all YouTubers stop. I think even though YouTube's only been around, I don't know technically how long it's been around, but popular maybe 15 years.
Yeah. Definitely the more newer age of YouTube where, in early 2000s, mid 2000s, people were just posting stuff for fun, right? No one was like, this is like a career or it could be lucrative.
But even the people where it turned out as a career, those end.
Yeah.
Usually 10 years,
There's
sometimes
very,
even earlier.
very few that still are going, right?
Right. It's like I can't do this anymore. I got to do something else. So it's going to happen at some point. It's just a question of when. And maybe it's sooner, maybe it's later. We'll see.
Well, I hope it's not sooner.
Thank you. Well, much appreciated.
Anyways, so we'll continue this conversation. I will link the part that we're going to do on Jeff's channel here. We're kind of splitting it, but definitely subscribe to Jeff if you're interested in the e-ink content. He is a specialist and reviews a lot of these devices and has always a good opinion on them. So thanks for the chat.
Thank you.
And we will see you in part 2.
All right.